Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk a bit about Ryokugyu, also known as Greenbull, a character that made his debut in chapter 905. And by identity, I mean let me first debunk some theories right off the bat, starting with Debunking Ushimaru. Ushimaru is not Admiral Ryokugyu.
Stop the cap! Stop the cap right now!
I understand that technically speaking right now, it's never been said that he's dead, but people, we can also infer, can't we? According to 𝘔𝘰𝘤𝘪𝘯, Zoro is a spitting image of Ushimaru in his youth, who inherited his ancestor Ryuma's talent for swordsmanship. During Wano, Zoro ended up returning Ryuma's sword 𝘔𝘰𝘤𝘪𝘯, which Kawamatsu considers fate because Zoro is one-eyed much like Ryuma was. Now tell me, do these two men look anything alike? Is there any sort of resemblance at all? I didn't think so, and for that, let's go to the latest chapter 1024. Here we have three individuals who have been locked up in the cave for longer than Yamato has, since Kaido clearly asks how many days has already been since they last ate, and then they continue to starve for 10 days after. In addition, these samurai have read and helped to translate Oden's logbook into simpler terminology for Yamato to understand. That already makes them candidates for Oda to rub out of the story since they know too much back then. Not to mention they then decide to sacrifice their lives in order for Yamato to escape and live till the day that the prophecy comes into effect. In Wano, there is a core theme that one must wait until Toki's prophecy on the return of the missing red scabbards comes true. 10 years ago, Ashura's Doji's friends became impatient and too eager to fight. They also did not fully believe in the prophecy. For that, their decision to raid Onigashima ended in a catastrophic failure. Now you're telling me that Ushimaru somehow survived a second time against Kaido after being starved despite all of these circumstances, and then escaping Wano, and eventually allying with the world government roughly 2 decades later? I don't know about that one, Chief. In fact, Yasue himself was disappointed to have survived the battle, and likewise Ushimaru considers himself to be a disgraced samurai for failing to defeat Kaido in the rebellion and liberate Wano. For that reason, Ushimaru is not intending to go back down or escape, and that's why he's dead. Finally, Ushimaru being alive also greatly devalues the harsh struggles that both Kawamatsu and Onimaru faced in their flashbacks respectively, as well as the preparation for the raid. Our next candidate is Brook's old captain, Yorki. Yorki's nickname is based directly on a notorious English pirate known as Calico Jack Rackham. He was known for creating the famous Jolly Roger of a skull over crossed swords, and also for his 2 female crew members, Mary Read and Anne Bonny. Johnny Depp's Captain Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean is not based on Calico Jack, but rather a different fellow by the name of John Ward, an English pirate who turned into a Barbary corsair operating out of Ottoman Tunis. I want to make it clear that names don't always affect the story. Oda loves borrowing names from real life without the characters themselves actually reflecting the historic counterparts. For example, Lafitte is nothing like Jean Lafitte. Bellamy is nothing like Samuel Bellamy. If we're going by names actually reflecting history, then that means Vice Admiral Maynard will be the one to kill Blackbeard at the end of the story. Not a chance. For many years, people have been trying to draw connections between Yorki and Greenbull, stating that he is alive and became an admiral. I've read them all. I've watched almost every video relating to it, and I'm gonna say something right now that probably kills off this theory for good. If Yorki is still alive after 50 years, then that completely ruins Brook's dream of passing his last song towards Laboon. Brook is meant to be the last of his crew, the one who's supposed to fulfill the will of the Rumbar Pirates. People also speculate that Yorki is the guy that Crocus is sharing a drink with in the cover page, and let me be real with you right now, it's not him. Granted, the cover page takes place after the Straw Hats met Crocus, but then why on earth would Yorki suddenly appear almost 50 years later? Laboon has been patiently waiting, scarring himself and suffering for decades on end for the eventual return of the Rumbar Pirates, and if you already saw Yorki first, then that doesn't mean much at all when Brook finally returns. I also find it far-fetched to believe that Yorki, even after being healed or having his age changed and any other plot device required, he would still have to go through the process of joining the Marines somehow as an admiral. It's hard to see someone transition from a pirate to a Marine, especially one that enjoys the freedom of playing music whenever he wants. As soon as Yorki would have been discovered, they would immediately reenact his old bounty, just as it happened for Brook. There's also no way that Fleet Admiral Sakazuki is going to allow a man with a background like that to join their ranks. At the end of the day, Yorki had a fatal, incurable disease and sailed through the calm belt with his condition so bad that he was bedridden. That is essentially a death sentence. I'm sorry, Joy Boy. I'm sorry, Flying Panda, and towards anyone else who has been avid on this theory, but personally I just don't see it happening. However, I will give credit. The idea falls into one of those absolutely insane but well thought out categories. And I think it's important nonetheless for me to be holistic in the approach of theories. This had to be done, and I needed to get off my chest or I would have never been at peace. Anyways, now that we have this whole thing out of the way, let's move on to the main theory. Any seasoned One Piece fan knows that Eiichiro Oda bases every admiral on famous and influential Japanese actors who passed away. This rule also applies towards the two admiral candidates, so if you want Ushimaru, Yorki, or anyone else that is an existing character in One Piece to be Greenbull, then you best hope that Oda breaks from this pattern or drastically changes the design to fit that agenda, because so far he has never deviated from this pattern for the admirals. Now, these actors aren't just famous in their own part. They were also very prevalent around the time when Oda was born and growing up as a child, meaning that he was definitely exposed to the media featuring said actors. This would mark a big part of his life and also the reason why he later pays homage to them by having the actors embody the Marine's strongest forces. Even if you didn't know about all of this, that's okay, because now I hope you learned something new. But what if I told you that I have an idea on who Ryokugyu will be based on, and how this connection will convey to us the possible personalities, tropes, and even his devil fruit abilities? Because at the end of the day, the devil fruit you eat will represent who you are as a person and your beliefs. This video is not about Greenbull's devil fruit, as many have already theorized on what type he may have, but rather, I'm going to present to you something else. Therefore, it is with my sincere belief that Ryokugyu could have been based on none other than Yoshio Harada, a very famous Japanese actor and producer whose career spanned for 6 decades in over 80 films. He was known as a person who played rebels and anti-heroes, and notably appeared in a Japanese samurai film titled Ronengai, with Shintaro Katsu and Kunei Tanaka. Did you recognize those actors? That's right, those are the same ones whom Fujitora and Kizaru are based on. For some background information on this film, Ronengai were a series of black and white silent films directed by Masashiro Makino, the son of Shozo Makino, who is considered the father of Japanese film, in 1928 and 1929. He filmed the first 2 installments. These films were known for its depiction of the unique setting of the Ronin town, as well as for exquisite camera work and fast-paced sword fighting scenes. Now, I personally don't know why this happened, but most of the film of Story 1 was lost, and Story 3 was completely lost. However, the shortened version of the film of Story 2 still exists. For this theory, I'm going to be referring to the 1990 version of Ronengai, which was directed by Kazao Kuroki in commemoration of the 60th anniversary of Shozo Makino. This is the film where Yoshio Harada and the other actors are present. Harada himself plays a character called Genai Aramaki, a Ronin and the hero of the story. Something else to point out is that Shintaro Katsu, who is well known for his performances from Zatoichi and Hanzo the Razor, takes on the role of a character called Bull. The film also marks the actor's final appearance, before his death 7 years later. Finally, for those who don't know, a Ronin is a samurai who doesn't have a lord, and as an example during the Wano Country arc, Zoro took on the role of a Ronin in order to blend in. The film is set during the last days of the Edo period in Japan, specifically in the 1830s, which was a time when many young Ronin were at the forefront of challenges to the Tokugawa shogunate in Edo, which is present-day Tokyo. This era also marked when the Boshin Civil War took place, resulting in an imperial victory with the end of the Japanese shogunate, the end of its isolationist foreign policy known as Sokaku, and the beginning of the Meiji government. The main characters of the film are a band of 4 desperate, disgruntled, selfish Ronin who are living in Edo's red light district. These disgraced and disillusioned former warriors get a chance at redemption when a force consisting of samurai invades the area to murder the prostitutes, and so they attempt to regain her honor by defending a brothel from this hostile militia. The deal breaker for me on why this film stood out and why I made this theory in the first place is that there is actually a fasting plot. Yoshio Harada's character refuses to eat food, and it turns out that he later tricked the others and betrayed them. This fasting plotline is also observed in One Piece, and forms the foundation for which many people try to theorize on Greenbull's devil fruit abilities.
There is no such thing as a coincidence.
Moreover, Greenbull's own laughing style, rahaha or harahara, is most likely directly referencing Harada himself. To support this theory furthermore, let's try to dissect the extremely limited information we have on Ryokugyu so far. This man is huge. Fujitora himself is 2.7 meters, or 8 feet and 10 inches, whilst Ryokugyu is already dwarfing him just by sitting on a lawn chair, sunbathing. In terms of personality, he seems to come off as an extremely laid-back, lazy individual, in the same way as 𝑔𝘒𝑒𝐿 was. And just like in the movie, Ryokugyu also has a liking for beautiful women. But despite this relaxed disposition, Ryokugyu seems well capable of being serious about his obligations as an admiral should the times demand it, such as when himself and Fujitora confronted the Revolutionary Army's commanders and chief of staff on the 4th day of the reverie. I believe that this type of personality leads to Greenbull embodying a very specific type of justice that I dubbed wild justice, or justice is what I want it to be. This would play into him being rebellious at his line of work, and also making it quite difficult for Akainu to control and order around, a theme that I've noticed around the end of Dressrosa back in 2016. It's actually possible that one day he could betray the Marines, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. As for the Devil Fruit, I would like it if he possessed a mythical Zoan, as we've never had an admiral with that type of fruit before, and it would complement the Logia, Paramecia, and Zoan grouping that are under Akainu's administration, in contrast towards the all Logia group that was under Sengoku's. In conclusion, Admiral Greenbull's silhouette, attitude and laid-back personality, the laugh, the fasting panel, and of course the trademark hairstyle matches the hypothesis that he's the spitting image of Yoshio Harada, and should hopefully be what Oda intended. Thank you so much for watching. I absolutely enjoyed making this video, and I genuinely hope you found it to be interesting and thought-provoking. If you did, please share the video around and feel free to leave any feedback in the comments below. I read every single one of them. Until next time, peace.